I'm going to turn now to our second part, which is an attempt to introduce you to Stone Hours, a very large book, as you can see, and I'm going to have to be as editorially wise as you were in making selections. But I'd just say a word that Jeremy Clark, the poet, was born in Bedfordshire, England, and he's worked in Europe and North America. He was poet in residence at Eton College from 2010 to 2020, and his archive is held in the Eton College collections. But he lives in London and is very much a London person, and I think I could say hi to Jeremy, who's probably watching. I would also say that he has his own very attractive website, and if you want to know more about his works over the past many years, please Google that. It's well worth a visit. His publisher, Agnes Cherhati, who is now actually a fellow parishioner of ours here at St. Thomas's, is the founder of Rufus Books, a small press she began over 20 years ago and has published many British and a few Canadian writers, John Rabitance, for example. In 2010, she published Jeremy Clark's Devon Hymns, a book that is on the book table in the hall. And in 2012, she proposed that we co-publish a little booklet called Common Prayer. Common Prayer is a short sequence that's also in the hall, and it's also one of the sequences in this book. So that was how I first met Agnes, and that's how I was introduced to Jeremy's work. And I've since been able to meet him very briefly in London on a couple of occasions. And then last year, Agnes, after this book was initially out, she invited me to interview Jeremy by email. So for several months last year, I was reading and rereading this book and trying to ask sensible questions. I don't know how sensible they turned out to be. We'll see. Agnes wanted you to know that she has a new website coming in the near future. It's in the process of coming into being. But in the meantime, if anyone wants to reach her, she said her Instagram account is @rufusbooks.ca. Now, her press shouldn't be confused with another of a similar name in the UK, Rufus something. It specializes in photos of rock bands. But if you have any message for her and you want to contact her, I can always pass on a message if you contact me. So Stone Hours is an extraordinary book, I think. It was collaboratively designed by both Agnes and Jeremy. And it was produced right next door here at Koch House Printing, where we have had all of our books produced as well. As I said, it contains 15 poetic sequences, and they were composed over a period of at least 25 years. Someone has described it as a medieval book of hours reimagined in the urban landscape. It alternates between psalms, extended meditations, and prayers, among other elements. You know, creating a big structure like that to house your lyric poems is reminiscent of George Herbert in The Temple, let's say, or Isaac Williams, an early tractarian who did a book called The Cathedral. So I have very limited time to introduce you to this. I want to whet your appetite for it. I will also make a few quotations from the interview when Jeremy elaborates on things that I had asked him about. So let me begin with light and wind. Those are two prominent natural elements in his anatomy of the urban. Light, for example, is always in motion, especially in times of transition, for example, arriving at dawn and then dissipating at dusk. And light is revelatory. So I'm going to read something called Day Shift from Tender for the Garden. It's on page 35. Day Shift. It is early morning, and light is arriving, sneaking in, blowing its cover as it comes. Night is disappearing, being pulled to pieces that fall into corners and between buildings where they lie until the sun has time to deal with details. The day is beginning like any other. Days are all so much the same, we've given them names to tell them apart. Who is to say there's not only one day, endlessly repeating, returning refreshed and renewed from a rest cure in the restorative dark? The same new morning emerging, clean and clear, dew damp from night's darkroom solution. As light slides in, sound gets up, breaking its silence as the street comes to life. Like a body of water, sound is mute and still until disturbed. It starts with me and the broom's whispered wake-up call, scratching the surface, stirring up sound. Soon all sorts of solos are in the air. A clink of milk bottles, keys turning a lock, a gargle of pigeon, a shop shutter going up, the first notes of the new day, delicate and light, subtle as spring, paving the way for, ready to give into some deep down thing, already stirring, coming awake. The day long loud, a soundstorm of bangs and shouts, buses, lorries, sirens, car horns, roadworks, rush hours wounding the air, creating an uproar, before blowing itself out at the day's far end. There the weight of noise will lessen and lift, revealing a calm of evening, mimic of morning, sound following the sun, weakening as light withdraws, the day sauntering through shades of gray, falling into night and dark and silence, with sound asleep. When I asked Jeremy about light, he said the following: simply and generally speaking, the light in stone hours is the presence of the divine. Everyone will have a different opinion of what the divine means to them, but that's generally what the reference is. He then referred me to one of his psalms in the vulgar tongue, number 105, which is on page 207. Here a boy is on a swing, trying to touch God. Psalm 105. One boy on a swing, scoring the air, building a curve, one beating wing, and the world's attempt at arc. And then, so high and hungry for height, a whole blue breaking into greens, the shocked air sent singing. I am swimming, one swerve like swallow, the light rising to meet me. I am light, being lifted, flight starved, my streaming eyes throw me into the infinite. I also asked Jeremy just for what's the overall mission or what's the overall vision, is the way he put it. And this is what he said about stone hours. Stone hours posits the modern urban world as a kind of New Jerusalem, as a holy city, which doesn't need to be understood in a purely religious sense, though it can be, but simply that the city is a place of wonder. Within the length of a footstep, there is something, indeed hundreds of things, worthy of our attention. I'm not so naive to think there is not problems, suffering, injustices, ugly realities within the urban experience, but I'm wanting to show that if we regard the whole differently and lived a little differently in it, it would be transformed. And as a consequence, we would be transformed also. Perspective is everything. Someone who read an early version of Stone Hours commented, "The church is outside." I thought that was the right interpretation of the work. If we went about our lives with this thought in mind, we would indeed inhabit a different world. The next selection is from a sequence called Adam's Lament. Though I move through a memorized scene, every step is into a moment I've not been in before. Things I pass know only purpose, permanently stuck at the moment of their making. Bench seat, street light, signpost, waste bin. These old buildings lining the wall, unaware of each other or the weather, the water's elaborate arrivals, concussed departures, a river's strange sideways decisions. The long slow of my straight and narrow, my step-by-step, encounter, embrace, adore, abandon. I'm a perfect stranger, passing through the commonplace, amazed. One might come to understand a thing if you gave it years of close attention. Learn that the smallest item can be transformed if considered in isolation and without prejudice. The wholly ordinary, the beautiful broken. I'm a discoverer and keeper of the unlooked for and the disregarded, while all the time, all that I do not know, cannot see, goes on around me. Jeremy Clark believes we need to open or reopen our eyes, perhaps in a way William Blake would certainly understand and approve of, to see again as little children. He says this has nothing to do with naivety, but with a reclamation of a sense of wonder. Appreciation and gratitude are two further essential elements. Gratitude is a big one. You could actually start with that. Wonder could not help but follow. But as we all know these days, there's a lot of challenges to paying attention to things. There's a lot of distraction. So there's a little passage in a sequence called Praise that sort of addresses this issue. It's called Home. But the brain butts in with its prosaic concerns and the metronomes of our routines, bullying the senses into believing in only the obvious and the mundane. Still, the hopeful heart keeps quietly going about its business, seeking connections, affection, and affinity, places to call home. We feel it when it finds something, feel it pull when we smell the sea, whenever it snows, if we're looked at in the eye by a wild animal, or simply step out into a shining morning following all-night rain, when every new-made thing seems stopped, says, wait a minute. So we pause for a second, without knowing why, without quite knowing what it is we're being shown or told. Each encountered thing sensed as a kind of homecoming, a glimpse of something we feel we ought to know, vaguely miss. Moments of truth, fragments of the sublime, subliminal lessons, long as eye blinks pitched at the heart, coming from the depths too deep for our ordinary noticing. How can we hope to grasp the complex when the commonplace is beyond comprehension? And then somebody shouts, the telephone rings, and the head restarts, returning us to our reality in the world of what we do. Who I am is not what I do, but how I see, how long I look, how well I listen, what I choose to hold in my attention. The sun has started to climb the walls. It's slow going, creating time zones on the wall maps. And time is simply presence, the light first in one place, then in another, each strange land having a turn at high noon. My imaginary world, its shapes and scars and variegation, make it a view of the earth seen from outer space. This fretwork of scratch marks is a layer of cirrus cloud or white caps of waves moving some ocean on and on. Now, sometimes the urban environment that Clark describes is empty of people. There are a lot of fascinating poems when he's describing out-of-the-way places and, construction sites and things like that. I'll just give you one example that struck me. It's in his sequence called Cathedral. Make sure I've got the right page. There. The heart of the night is the bright garden of the petrol station, closed and still, fully lit. Under a shining wing of roof, perfect peace and order, and nothing out of place. One sound. It is the wind that enters, wanting everything to lie flat, so that it can be the only standing thing. Still, nothing can be moved. Four walls of dark, diluted, lean against it. Behind them, the night is everything it has. Just a small sample. There are better ones. More often, though, Clarke gives us London, the world of London, sometimes the unseen world of London at night, as in a sequence called Night Office. He especially values the people who work at night. They keep the city functioning. So I'm going to give you just one sample of that. On this page, page 91, there's a couple of words of introduction, then there's a short passage with a heading number 8, then there's another couple of lines, and then there's another section of lines called number 17, and then a final couplet on the page. So almost every sequence has elaborate typographical structures like this, which I can't probably convey to you very well, but I'm just going to mention this one because he has some interesting things to say about it. Anyway, lighter than a day and alive in the timeless hours, night appears to the green world as the first wonder. Number 8, the tin badge on the security guard's chest and the fire end of a cigarette in his swinging hand attached to the light as he walked. The frayed cuffs of his blue shirt, a blue clip-on tie, how a corner of a piece of paper in a trouser pocket is taken by the light. What rose from the resident earth also fell as a sky's cold to rearrange the eloquent air so that a night could break. Number 17, steam rises from the coffee cup of the office cleaner, taking a break in the street. The light loves the ring of keys alive at her waist as she comes, every one of her whites, bandana and apron, the stained, unlaced trainers slapping her heels like slippers. Night is unaccountable silences hung on the underweights of air, air that is holding every scent and carrying the falling leaf to the ground. So I was quite fascinated with Night Office, and I asked Jeremy about it, and he said the following. It tells you something about the depth of this collection. The Night Office is the centerpiece of the Carthusian monastic order. Their hours-long sung liturgy in the middle of the night in an unlit church. The idea behind the sequence, Night Office, is the city's night hours and the few people who inhabit them, the night worker, the sleepless, the down and out, the party goer, etc. In their different places in the city, all have for some reason come briefly to the light of a street lamp. All are drawn to the light. Each one comes to the light to better see, to do something that required the light, after which, strengthened or newly prepared, they turn to face the dark once more. The suggestion also is that they are all unknowingly participating in a version of the Carthusian Night Office. You could say that each conical light cast by the lamp is a little church. They enter, attend, then leave. And elsewhere, he said, the street sweeper, courier, this is, of course, people who work during the day as well, but it's just about the working people of London. Window cleaners, pavement layers, by virtue of their ground-level places, are all indeed witnesses. So are the carers of others, caregivers, the security guard, the home care nurse, the cafe cleaner, but perhaps none more so than the street sweeper, who in his role both within and separated from the busyness going on around him, can only witness rather than participate in the urban. By ground level, I mean a kind of fundamental level. Each worker is a foundation stone. Without them, the whole place fails. Let's hear one final example from the desire field. This too is a complex sequence. If I can find it. And again, there is a kind of complex relationship between the different parts on the page. There's a little section at the top of 5 lines, and it's headed altar. And then at the bottom, there's a little group of 7 lines, and it's headed choir. So you can hear some of the suggestions. Anyway, let me just read this one page. Altar. A crushed pen and a purple hairband at the edge of the manhole cover. A faded till receipt pasted between cast iron letters. In the middle, a circle of corrosions orange and a long crack clogged with road gravel and leaf litter. The light on a blue bottle cap pressed flat to the brown. The wind was sent to stand for silence, color to green and to green the gray bare ground. Desert heat and white fire of blown snow across an empty road, wild without words, a world submits to reinvention, light for the boulevard and blue horizon. As a calculated instrument, reckoning shadows, it is the dark that speaks. Dark is purely aroma and an aftertaste of air. Somewhere a siren. Footsteps like stitchwork on the laid stone. A row of trees all at once with wings. Choir. A young family of 3 returning to their car with bags of food shopping. The small child carrying a single potato held against her chest with both hands. Reaching the car, the mother turns round and calls to her daughter, stopped in her tracks by a pigeon standing its ground. Jeremy said the following about this sequence. It's called the desire field. The desire field is one of my favorite sequences as it specifically sets out, that is, it physically lays out what Stone Hours is suggesting throughout, that the church is outside. The altar sections are positioned on the page as if they are indeed altars at the top end of a church. Each altar is a 5-line justified text block to look like an altar stone. And each is a throwaway or simple functional item or situation in the urban scape, a builder's pallet, bus stop, shelter roof, etc. The narrow central text, which could be considered the nave in a church, is an ongoing description of creation, what air is, how weather works, how the light behaves. This central text is flanked along a church's side aisles, if you will, by 7-line right or left-aligned choir texts that depict basic tasks in ordinary lives. It's worth pointing out that of the 15 choir texts in the desire field, the only choir that actually sings is the last one, a group of girls at a bus stop. Quote, one of them starts to sing and all raise their bangled arms and dance. Well, Stone Hours, to my mind, is a profoundly religious book in the widest sense. There are certain words and phrases you come upon as you read it. They stand out. A room as a cell, the miracle of the quotidian, the stations of the dark, the holy ordinary, devotion to the journey, and so on. There are also the references to the discipline needed to promote the work of spiritual growth. We discover through moments of connection that, quote, all we need is here. Clark conveys our need to attend to the unnoticed, to learn to see, to practice simplicity, to embrace solitude, open our hearts, achieve slowness, to develop a capacity for profound attention. The result is a realization that everything belongs and that the unfolding issues in gratitude and praise. So I'm going to briefly conclude with the last item in the book, which is called Angelus. And I think he attempts in a very few words to try and sum up. Angelus. Take everything, a stone's cold, the flung sky, land going from field to field, the lit city, the curved horizon, a season's blind devotion. Hold everything dear. All we need is here. Thank you.